Imagine waking up one morning not with dread or duty, but with the quiet conviction that life still holds its greatest work for you. This is not a poetic fantasy. It is, in fact, one of the most significant revelations of modern neuroscience and timeless philosophy, converging into a truth too powerful to ignore. The mind does not age in the way the body does. While our bodies may slow, our capacity for imagination, creation, and reinvention can remain not only intact but vibrant. What science now proves, philosophy has whispered for centuries, consciousness is the fountainhead of all renewal. Recent research from Harvard's Department of Psychology reveals that adults over the age of 65 who engage in imaginative visualization and adopt purposeful mental habits experience measurable improvements in memory, emotional well-being, and even physical health. The study showed that those who imagine themselves living with vitality, mentally rehearsing movements, conversations, and even laughter experienced a 30% improvement in motor coordination and a notable reduction in depressive symptoms. These are not mere placebo effects. They are neuroplastic responses, proof that the brain rewires itself according to the mental story we tell. This affirms what ancient thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and modern minds like Viktor Frankl believed, that man is not defined by circumstance, but by the stance he takes toward it. You are not merely a body in space. You are a creator of space within consciousness. And it is within this inner workshop that the greatest transformations begin. If you tell yourself that the best is behind you, your brain will comply. It will shrink, retreat, conserve energy. But if you dare to hold the thought, even once a day, that your life's deepest purpose is still unfolding, your physiology responds. You begin to breathe differently. Your heart rate adjusts. Your immune system boosts its resilience. This is not metaphysical poetry. It is psychophysiology, and it is in your hands. Picture this, a man, 73 years old, sitting on his porch in Montana. He spent his life working the land, raising his family, surviving losses. One day, with nothing more than a notebook and the memory of a childhood dream, he begins sketching. Horses, landscapes, rivers. He does this daily with no audience, no training. Within 3 months, he feels lighter. Not just emotionally. He walks more, sleeps better. His daughter notices and posts one of his drawings online. A local gallery sees it. They call. He sells his first piece. Not for the money, but for the revelation he has become, once again a beginner. And in that, he becomes limitless. You see, aging is not decline. Aging is refinement. The question is not, what are you losing? The question is, what are you ready to reclaim? What part of your inner life has been waiting for the stillness of this chapter to rise and speak? Perhaps it is music. Perhaps a story you've never told. Perhaps it is simply the art of deeper connection with those around you. What neuroscience and philosophy now agree upon is this. Your state of consciousness shapes your experience more than any objective factor. The brain does not stop changing. It stops changing when you stop believing it can. So begin here. Right now. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine yourself not as you are, but as the truest version of who you might become if you lived with no past to define you. Feel that version. See what he or she is doing. Where do you live? Who do you love? What do you create? This mental act is not fantasy. It is construction. It is foundation laying for the next unfolding of your reality. And tomorrow, repeat it. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Do not wait for inspiration. Instead, act like the person who is already inspired. Move like someone who has already received their answer. This is how transformation begins. Not with effort, with assumption. Not with trying, with being. You are not too late. You are precisely on time. Because time, my dear friend, is not measured in hours. It is measured in alignment. And when you align thought, belief, and action, you will witness how quickly life begins to respond. Now ask yourself one question. If today was the beginning of everything, how would you choose to show up? Answer it not in theory, but in action. Because the body may slow, but the spirit, when claimed, moves mountains. And yours is just getting started. There comes a time in life not marked by a birthday or retirement, but by an inner stirring when we begin to wonder not just what time we have left, but how we will live with the time that remains. And in that question lies the seed of profound transformation. You see, the second half of life is not a slow descent into irrelevance. It is, as Carl Jung once observed, the time when the fruit finally ripens. Science now tells us what philosophy has long implied. The later stages of life can be the most creative, meaningful, and emotionally rich of all, if we dare to see them as beginnings instead of ends. Neuroscientists studying the aging brain at Stanford and MIT have discovered something extraordinary. While certain regions of the brain associated with speed and short-term memory may slow slightly, other areas, those responsible for empathy, pattern recognition, and creative synthesis, continue to grow more active and interconnected well into our 70s and beyond. In other words, your brain becomes more capable of wisdom. It becomes a master of connections. Think of it like this. The brain of a younger person is like a quick car on a straight road, fast but often linear. The brain of someone your age, however, is a rich, winding river, slower in pace, but deeper, wider, filled with layers of understanding that only time can teach. This is not decline. This is evolution. Imagine now the Greek philosopher Heraclitus, who said, "You cannot step into the same river twice." What he meant was that life is always flowing, always changing, and so are we. But here's the part modern science adds. Though the river changes, you can learn to flow with it not as a passive leaf, but as the one steering the boat. How? By becoming conscious of your thoughts, by choosing deliberately what you focus on, and by engaging in activities that not only stimulate your brain, but also stretch your spirit. Studies from the Mayo Clinic show that seniors who regularly engage in intellectually challenging tasks like learning new languages, taking up musical instruments, or participating in group discussions are up to 30% less likely to develop cognitive decline. And this isn't about keeping busy. It's about cultivating new neurological pathways through meaningful engagement. The data is clear, but more than data, this is about direction. It's about asking yourself, where do I still want to grow? And then pursuing that question with the curiosity of a beginner and the dignity of someone who knows time is no longer to be wasted. Let me offer you a practical image. Picture a man standing at the edge of his backyard in Wisconsin. The seasons have passed him by for decades. He's mowed the same lawn, walked the same paths, watched the same birds fly overhead. One autumn, after reading a book about local ecosystems, he begins to notice things he never saw before. The migration patterns of the birds, the subtle shift in light on the maple trees, the sound of wind changing direction. He buys a field journal, starts writing, then painting, then sharing his observations in a local newsletter. What changed? Not the world, his perception. And perception is reality, not metaphorically but literally. Because every time you change what you see, your brain changes how it processes your experience. Neuroplasticity continues as long as you continue to care. So the invitation is simple and radical. Begin again. Not with grandeur, but with sincerity. Try something you've never tried. Read poetry aloud. Cook a dish from a culture you've never visited. Walk a different path and greet one stranger each day. Keep a dream journal. Paint with your non-dominant hand. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that it lifts you out of routine and into wonder. Philosophers have long taught that the soul grows through experience, but modern psychiatry now affirms it through what is called experiential learning. It's not just that we retain knowledge better through doing, it's that our emotional lives become more integrated. Our past makes more sense. Our regrets soften. Our identity becomes more fluid and forgiving. And this is where something beautiful happens. As the need to prove diminishes, the capacity to serve increases. Many older adults find their greatest joy not in what they take in, but in what they give out: the mentoring, the storytelling, the presence that only those who have lived fully can offer to those just beginning. So if you are listening to this, and you are wondering whether your best days are behind you, I invite you to consider the possibility that the most important contribution you will make to this world hasn't even been made yet. It might be the conversation you have with your grandson that changes the trajectory of his life. It might be the memoir you write, even if no one reads it but your daughter. It might be the quiet strength with which you endure hardship, becoming a lighthouse for others in storms of their own. Begin today with one simple act. Reclaim a piece of yourself that you set aside long ago. A curiosity, a dream, a hobby, a subject you used to love. Don't ask whether you're good at it. Ask only, does it make you feel alive? Because aliveness is the most trustworthy compass you'll ever have. And if you follow it with humility and courage, you will find that life isn't fading. It's unfolding. Still. Always. There is a quiet power that comes with age, a kind of clarity that does not shout but speaks in the tone of deep rivers. It is the power to pause before reacting, to reflect before speaking, and to perceive beyond appearances. In youth, energy often masquerades as wisdom, but in the later years of life, wisdom becomes energy. It becomes fuel for a different kind of fire, one that does not burn to conquer, but to illuminate. And now, more than ever, the world needs that kind of light. Recent psychological research from the University of California has identified what is known as the positivity effect in older adults, a cognitive shift where attention and memory increasingly favor positive over negative information. This is not denial, it is evolution. It is the brain's way of prioritizing meaning, of choosing what nourishes the spirit over what depletes it. What philosophers like Aristotle called eudaimonia, flourishing through virtue, and purpose now finds validation in the way your brain is naturally inclined to search for what matters most. Imagine this: a woman in her late 60s living in Arizona, recently widowed, uncertain about how to fill her days. One morning, while walking past a community garden, she stops and watches a man planting herbs. He looks up, smiles, and invites her to help. She kneels in the soil, hands trembling at first, unsure. But something ancient awakens in her. The smell of basil, the sun on her back, the conversation of strangers turning slowly into friends. Weeks pass. Her heart rate stabilizes. Her sleep improves. Her laughter returns. What happened was not simply social interaction. It was meaning being rediscovered through connection, embodiment, and shared contribution. Studies from the National Institute on Aging confirm that purposeful activities like volunteering or participating in group efforts reduce the risk of cognitive decline and lower mortality rates. Meaning is not abstract. It is biological. It is measurable. It is essential. The Stoic philosophers taught that we are not disturbed by things, but by our interpretation of things. And cognitive behavioral science agrees. The story you tell yourself about your age shapes your health more than your actual years. In one remarkable study conducted at Yale, researchers found that older adults who held positive beliefs about aging lived an average of 7.5 years longer than those who did not. The story quite literally extends the life. So the invitation becomes clear: rewrite the narrative. Not by pretending you are young, but by remembering that you are powerful, that you are still writing the most meaningful chapters of your life, that the shape of your days is not a sentence passed down by time, but a sculpture shaped by your awareness and attention. You can begin this process by asking yourself one simple question each morning. What is one small thing I can do today that brings me closer to meaning? Not to productivity, not to usefulness in the eyes of others, but to meaning as you feel it in your own chest. For some, it might be calling someone you haven't spoken to in years and telling them what they meant to you. For others, it might be walking to the corner store and really noticing the world around you, instead of simply passing through it. It could be writing down one memory from your life each day and collecting them like pearls on a necklace that tells your story to the next generation. Because you are not a statistic. You are a living library. And your presence, your stories, your very breath, these are the medicine our disconnected world so desperately needs. Let us also speak frankly about the body. Aging changes it, yes, but it also reveals it in new ways. Movement becomes more meaningful when we move not to compete, but to care. Research from Tufts University has shown that even modest physical activity such as daily walking, light resistance training, or Tai Chi improves cognitive function, mood, and immune response in adults over 65. But beyond the science, there is the truth you can feel in your own body. A 10-minute stretch with mindful breathing can feel like opening the windows of a long-closed house. Movement becomes gratitude in motion. So let this be a practice, not a performance. Wake up, stretch, breathe, walk not to get somewhere, but to remember that you are alive, still part of the pulse of the living world. And finally, let us return to something as old as philosophy itself: contemplation. This does not require incense or rituals, only silence and sincerity. Sit with a question that matters to you. What do I still long to say? What do I want to give before I go? Who have I not yet forgiven, including myself? Neuroscientific studies at the University of Wisconsin show that contemplative practices, such as meditation or reflective journaling, increase activity in the prefrontal cortex, the region associated with emotional regulation, insight, and long-term planning. This is not wishful thinking. It is an invitation to reclaim authorship over the tone and direction of your final chapters. So breathe deeply. Look around your room. Touch the table, the chair, the light filtering through the window. This is your stage. This is your moment. Life did not forget you. It has simply been waiting for you to remember your role, not as someone fading, but as someone ripening into the fullest expression of yourself. There is no such thing as too late, only the decision not to begin. Begin now. Begin again. Begin as if this is the most important season of your life. Because in truth, it is. What if I told you that the way you speak to yourself each day is more powerful than any pill, more life-altering than any procedure, and more defining than any diagnosis? This is not poetic sentiment. It is a conclusion born of both science and philosophy converging in a truth too urgent to ignore. Your inner dialogue, the quiet voice that narrates your life, is the architect of your biology. The ancient Stoics taught that we become what we repeatedly contemplate, and today neuroscience agrees. Studies from the Cleveland Clinic and Johns Hopkins University have shown that sustained negative self-talk correlates with increased inflammation, weakened immune response, and reduced cognitive function, while positive affirmations and self-directed compassion activate regions of the brain associated with motivation, memory, and resilience. This means that what you say in the silence of your own mind has the power to shape your physical health, your emotional well-being, and even the trajectory of your future. Imagine, for a moment, standing in front of a mirror in your home in Vermont or Ohio or Texas. You look at the lines on your face, the silver in your hair, the slight bend in your spine. The voice of the world might say you are aging. But what if the voice in your mind says instead, I am still growing, I am still becoming? That single shift from judgment to curiosity can change the chemical soup of your body. Cortisol lowers, serotonin rises, your breath deepens, the tension in your shoulders releases. This is not just mindfulness, it is molecular influence, and it begins with awareness. The philosopher Descartes declared, I think, therefore I am, but in this new age of scientific clarity, perhaps we must expand that truth to say, as I think, so I become. You may be wondering, how do I shift years, even decades, of habitual self-talk? Begin small, as all revolutions do. Each morning, choose one sentence to speak aloud to yourself. Something simple, something true, something life-affirming. Today I welcome meaning. I am worthy of joy. There is still beauty ahead of me. Repeat it not because it is magic, but because repetition is how the brain learns. The hippocampus, responsible for memory and emotion, responds to emotional tone and frequency more than logic. Speak kindly and often, and your brain will begin to mirror your voice instead of the noise of the past. Just as muscles grow through use, thought patterns deepen through practice. So practice what empowers you. Let me offer you a true story. A retired schoolteacher in rural Pennsylvania, long burdened by feelings of uselessness after leaving the classroom, began a daily habit of writing one positive note to herself each morning. At first, they were awkward and brief. You got up today. That's good. Over time, they became richer. You gave 30 years to shaping young minds. That matters. 6 months later, her blood pressure dropped. Her sleep improved. Her granddaughter visited more often, drawn by something lighter in her presence. The practice of inner kindness had quietly, steadily, reshaped her reality. Not because the world outside changed, but because her perception of self did. And perception, as modern psychology shows, is not only interpretation, it is creation. When you believe you are valued, you begin to act as if you are. And when you act as if you are, the world cannot help but reflect that back. There is also a profound physiological explanation for this. The vagus nerve, which runs from your brainstem through your heart and into your gut, plays a major role in regulating your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest, recovery, and healing state. Positive self-talk and intentional breathing stimulate the vagus nerve, leading to improved digestion, heart rate variability, and mood stabilization. It is your body's built-in peacekeeper, and it responds to your tone of voice, even when it's internal. Speak to yourself like someone you love, and your body will begin to feel safe enough to heal, to thrive, to grow again. Now let us not mistake this for denial or toxic positivity. Life has real pain, real loss, real limitation. But here is what both ancient philosophy and contemporary science agree on. Suffering is inevitable, but the meaning we assign to it is not. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, wrote that those who found purpose in their suffering were the ones most likely to survive. His theory, known as logotherapy, is now foundational in positive psychology. Meaning is medicine. Even when pain remains, the way we frame that pain determines whether it becomes poison or power. So when the aches come, when the loneliness stirs, when the memories of what once was visit you in the stillness, speak to them not as enemies, but as honored guests. Say, thank you for reminding me I have lived. Thank you for showing me what matters. Action becomes the anchor of belief. So as you speak life into your thoughts, live those thoughts into your body. Write your words down. Tape them to your bathroom mirror. Say them at the kitchen table. Share them with a friend. Let your home become a sanctuary of inner dialogue made visible. Teach your children and grandchildren not just by advice, but by the quiet model of someone who has learned to befriend their own soul. The greatest legacy you can leave may not be your possessions, but your posture toward life. And posture, as it turns out, is contagious. So today and tomorrow, and the days ahead, begin again not with grand gestures but with soft revolutions. With gentle declarations that echo across your own nervous system like music through an empty hall. You are not finished. You are unfolding. You are not in decline. You are refining. You are not becoming less. You are becoming true. Speak it. Write it. Breathe it. And watch how life answers back. There is a season in life when the world grows quiet enough for you to hear your own truth. That season, for many, begins after 65. It is not the closing act. It is the great unveiling. And in this stillness, you may begin to notice that the deepest joy is no longer found in accumulation, but in alignment. The alignment of your values with your actions, of your memories with your meaning, and of your daily life with the legacy you quietly dream of leaving behind. For too long, aging has been presented as a fading process, a gradual dimming of the light. But the science of aging tells a different story. Researchers at Harvard and the University of Exeter have confirmed that individuals who maintain a clear sense of purpose in later life have lower rates of Alzheimer's disease, reduced risk of stroke, and significantly greater overall well-being. Purpose acts like a compass within the brain, activating the prefrontal cortex, increasing serotonin production, and regulating immune response. It literally gives the body a reason to repair itself. But more importantly, purpose gives the soul a reason to rise each morning. Picture this. An older man in Oregon spends his mornings feeding birds outside his kitchen window. At first, it is habit. Then, he begins documenting which species arrive. Then, he paints them. One of his grandchildren begins asking questions. He starts keeping a log. It becomes a journal. The journal becomes a story. And one day, he realizes that he has not just been observing birds, but creating a bridge between generations. What began as a quiet ritual becomes a family legacy. This is what purpose looks like in the real world. It is not always a grand invention or a global impact. Often it is something small, repeated with intention, infused with meaning, and shared with love. It is when your ordinary becomes someone else's inspiration. And the beauty of this truth is that you can start today. Philosophers like Seneca taught that it is not the length of life, but the depth of living that defines a human being. The Stoics believed that every day carries the weight of eternity, that how you greet the morning, how you treat a stranger, and how you listen to a loved one determines not just who you are, but what kind of universe you are helping shape. Today, we know that these aren't just ideals. These are behavioral patterns that impact your brain chemistry, your relationships, and your physical health. Kindness is measurable. Connection is healing. And even short acts of contribution light up the reward centers of the brain as vividly as winning a prize. This is the power you carry now. Not just to remember your past, but to shape the present moment into something sacred. So how do we live this? Begin by asking yourself 2 questions each morning. First, what am I grateful for? Second, who can I serve today? Gratitude and service are 2 of the most potent psychological tools available to us, especially in the later decades of life. They boost dopamine, improve heart health, and strengthen emotional resilience. But more than that, they ground us in the now. Write a thank you note. Make a phone call. Offer a story. Sit beside someone in silence who just needs to not be alone. These are not minor gestures. They are the seeds of transformation, the roots of meaning, the essence of a life well lived. And if there is a dream still inside you, unspoken or delayed, do not dismiss it because of age. Do not let the clock steal your courage. Studies from Stanford's Center on Longevity show that creativity does not decline with age, but often flourishes once the pressure to compete is lifted. Now is the time to try, to return to the piano, to start the garden, to write the letter, to take the course, not because you must, but because you can. Your soul is asking not for perfection, but for participation. Show up for your own life as if it matters. Because it does. If no one has told you this lately, let me say it now. The world still needs what only you can give. Your insight, your perspective, your patience, your stories, your voice. You are not invisible. You are essential. And the most important part of your legacy may still be waiting for you to claim it. So here is my call to you. Do not let another day pass in passive existence. Choose one action before the sun sets today. One gesture of kindness. One moment of gratitude. One step toward a dream. Write it down. Speak it aloud. Share it with someone. Let today be the day you stop measuring what is left and start multiplying what is possible. You are not here to fade. You are here to flourish. And the world is better for your becoming. Let it begin now.